you guys a quick background, we actually, Hemant and Kantar IMRB and Culture Machine got together to create the first kind of its study where we use Culture Machine's proprietary big data platform, which is called Intelligence Machine. Over the last 4 years, we have been gathering data from YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as Vimeo, on video consumption. We track and crawl roughly about 3 billion videos a day. And we use data science and machine learning to understand what content resonates with a particular target audience. We then combined with Hemant's team at Kantar IMRB in order to kind of put together, use the panel of 8,000 people in order to understand the changing patterns in digital video consumption. Over the last 1 year, there's the launch of Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hotstar has become bigger, YouTube continues to reign supreme, Facebook has grown, Instagram has launched stories. Video is dominating the social video scape. We are able to marry data and analysis using intelligence machine along with the IMRB panel to hopefully what I think has given us deep insights on what works. So without further ado, Hemant, would be great if you could take over.
Thanks, Sam. It is, as Sam said, the first of its kind mobile video report in the country. So what really got us started on this journey was, if you look at the last 12 months or 18 months, I don't think we've had a period of this kind of change that one is seeing, be it in terms of the mobile wars, the launch of 4G, etc., etc. We all know that mobile video and social video in particular has been booming. However, the big question was that there were no numbers to back that. So the attempt behind combining the strengths between the two companies, Culture Machine and Kantar IMRB, was to create something which gives the marketers and planners some insight on who's watching, how much is being watched, when is it being watched, etc. What's interesting about this is it's not a claimed data alone. There's a huge big data that we've used, the intelligence machine data, which processes about 3 billion videos every day. So we've drawn the learnings from there. We've also used the panel data that we run at Kantar IMRB. There's a panel of 8,000 smartphone users, and we track their behavior in terms of what they're doing at what time of the day. And where we saw there was a gap in the data that between the two sources that we had. So we've got two passive sources. The only claim data that we which was missing, the data which was missing, which we had to collect primarily, was on OTT. So we went out and interviewed 1,500 smartphone users to understand their interaction and usage of OTT platforms. So all these three pieces make us believe that what we're going to be sharing with you and the industry is kind of very, very solid, comprehensive, and should be very useful. I spoke about the changes which have been happening, and there's what has been the impact of all these changes. One thing that we see very clearly is it's a no-brainer. Mobile is the first screen. It has got the engagement levels are phenomenal. But what's interesting is that an average smartphone user today spends close to about 4 hours a day doing something or the other with his smartphone. And that is about a third time spent more than TV. So in a way, for the smartphone user, mobile is the first screen, which has overtaken now TV. The other thing that we noticed is the rise of social all around us. It's changed us as both people and society. We seem to be living in moments and instances. I heard a very nice phrase which says this is the age of instancy, and we all like to capture it. And what better than to capture those moments and instances using a video, right, which is available on the phone. And that seems to be really driving the adoption of this particular part of content. Add to that were a lot of other changes which happened, and two which were big changes is the judicial crackdown that we had on the torrents and the pirated sites which were available, be it the Indian courts or a publisher like Google saying that we will not even display the links of the pirate sites like your Kick-Ass and Pirate Bay, etc. So that with the drop in the piracy levels, What also happened simultaneously was the launch of several avenues for both regular and premium content, which is in form of OTT, with all kinds of models. So you had a free model all the way, which was supported by advertising, to paid-for model. Sam spoke about Netflix and Amazon Prime. Again, different models which were bringing in people, one driving an e-commerce route to bring audiences onto its OTT platform. So all these seem to have added to the momentum, which was anyway inbuilt in the social video consumption. Last quarter of 16 was perhaps a watershed quarter, with launch of Geo and the free data packs and the competitive action. It changed the way we consume data in the country. One simple statistic, which is from the mobile panel that we run for Mobile Marketing Association. You've seen those posters outside. It just shows that in a quarter, there was a 23% increase in what the consumers were using mobile phone. And this was not just in terms of voice or text, but if you look at it, the impact on data consumption, it's jumped. This is some data from the Ericsson mobility report. It said that in 5 years, we are going to, our average consumption from 1.4 GB per person would go up to 7. If you look at some of the recent reports, we seem to have already cracked the 7 GB per day consumption levels. And the other good news is that, again, if you look at it, the impact of this is the role of paid for, or what we call as the video subscription services, is rapidly growing. The pie, which is, it's expected in the next 4 years, it's going to be about 6 times its size. Right, so all these are the drivers that we saw. Now, what the report is trying to do is to present what's been the impact of all these drivers on the consumption habits of the consumer. Let me first start off by giving you the profile of who the consumer is. Anytime that we ask anyone who's a smartphone user or who's a social video viewer, the answers are it's going to be, it's a young, under 24, affluent metro consumer. Now, is that really true? Let me just share some findings with you. The first myth is that it's not really the affluent consumer. 4 out of 10, or 40% of the consumers who are consuming social video are actually from middle and lower income classes. So you've got 40% consumers from SEC, C, D, and E. Now this makes a very important point for the brands. It's no longer a medium which is restricted to your upscale premium brands. You can start thinking of it as a medium for your mass market brands. The other is young. Is the consumer really young? If you were to look at this data, what we find is that nearly half of the consumers are 25 years or older. Okay, so people like me also are consuming social video. Now, again, the implication is that these are the consumers, who have the money, they've got their own incomes, and are consuming and shopping. So again, you're reaching out. The medium is today ready for mass market brands and talk to the shopper who's actually putting out the money. Let's look at, is there a gender split? Yes, there is a gender split inherent in the smartphone universe. If you look at the smartphone universe, you've got about 2/3 are men and 1/3 is women. The same plays out in case of social video consumption. But the interesting bit is the engagement levels that women display with social video is far higher and far greater and far intense as compared to an average male. So they're likely to be 30% more avid consumers of social video. Again, good news for the brands. You're reaching out to the end consumer, the key target group, the women, SEC, whatever that you define that you want to reach, you can use social video. And the other is that the small town, large town divide. Very, very interesting. 2/3 of social video consumers actually are non-metro. They live in towns, in smaller towns which are below 10 lakh population. Now, this statistic becomes even more interesting if you actually look at the profile of how the smartphone universe is split. If you look at the smartphone universe, 45% of smartphone owners are in the smaller towns, below 10 lakh population. But interestingly, you're getting 1.5 times return for social video from those consumers. So very, very intensive consumption. Maybe it's also saying that there is some hunger for some kind of content which they don't seem to be getting. But they seem to be, they're the ones who have adopted social video far intensively as compared to the metro consumers. So very different from what we believe is the profile of an average social video consumer. Of the 100 million, our estimate of 100 million smartphone users in the country, in urban, 1/5 of them are actually avid consumers of social video. What do I mean by people who are avid consumers? These are the consumers who are spending about 45 minutes a day watching one video or the other. So that's the level of engagement and consumption that you're seeing with this group. Very interesting, 1 out of 5 smartphone user is spending so much time on video. And if you look at where are they going? We spoke about the avid, but if you look at average consumer, a smartphone user, they're spending about 3 hours a day, less than about a half an hour each day watching video. And yes, the big two are still the port of calling, which is YouTube and Facebook, despite the fact that you've got a lot of OTT platforms and other options. Sam spoke about Instagram. Everyone is going live. Messengers are offering video, but it's still dominated by the big two, which is Facebook and YouTube. And speaking about OTT, this is the survey that we ran. What the survey showed us is that 1 out of 3 smartphone users is actually using an OTT platform today. So very quick reach for a relatively new technology which has come in. So high potential, but remember it's fragmented and it's across many, many players. So that was all about the consumers and the profile. We got tons of data more in terms of what kind of content works. Consumer is finally chasing content. So far, our belief has been that consumers are actually chasing entertainment. Is that really true? So let's look at some, understand what kind of content seems to be working. If you look at this, actually the consumption patterns are very, very split. So there's a whole range of options that they seem to be consuming. Yes, entertainment and comedy comes up right at top, but you have lots of other do-it-yourself, tutorials, education, news, which seems to be coming in. Cookery is another interesting genre which is being consumed. Now, what this tells us that the consumers seem to be looking at 2 reasons why when they're selecting portals. One is, what's the range of content which is available? And more importantly, what's the kind of content creators who are there on that particular platform? And you see a very clear divide between, what kind of content seems to be working on platform A versus platform B. As I said, yes, the big music, entertainment, and comedy still rules the roost. But what was personally surprising and interesting insight for us is the role of education and news, which is growing, and it's the fastest growing segment. We've used the data for last 1 year to see how the growth of consumption patterns across various genres split out, and these 2 emerge as the fastest growing genres. Interestingly, if I were to tell you, ask you, what kind of education content would work or is being consumed? Perhaps your answer is something which helps me prepare for my classes or help me in do my, child can do his or her assignment. And what if I tell you the interesting insight that we found is that actually the content which is growing, being consumed most is addressing the toddlers and preschoolers. So virtually the mums and parents seem to be using the mobile phone and the social video to really train the before the school starts, or to babysit the little ones. So you see a lot of consumption of nursery rhymes, for instance. Other category that we see is news and politics, and this is where the interesting thing comes. This is very skewed towards Facebook. So on Facebook, news and politics is the second most consumed genre, for instance, right? So there are lots of interesting consumption patterns differing by platforms that you will see in the report. Coming to some watchouts, I think one of the things that I would like to state here is, and this is what Gonzalo also alluded earlier in his talk, is I think we need to contextualize at the messaging that we do in context of where the consumer is. Just to give you a simple example, the format, whether it should be a landscape versus portrait, varies. For instance, the size of the screen in India, which works, is actually the smaller one as compared to what a 5-inch or bigger screen. Okay, so what kind of, when we're creating content, we got to keep that in mind. Second is the time at which I'm consuming, and if I'm consuming alone versus family, the different dynamics and the different tone and the kind of content which is being consumed. For marketers, 2 questions. One is that if you're going to use social video as one of the channels of means of communication, and we should, as the study has shown us, is there a prime time? And believe me, there is. There's a prime time when the maximum consumption of social video happens, and it again varies by platforms. And second is, while engagement levels are high, do we know what kind of format works? So should we go in for a 2-minute video versus a short 10-second video, or 30-second video? And it has implications on what kind of creative treatment do we give. Third is, if I'm consuming video with the sound switched off, can I really afford to be on a very heavy voiceover or musical video? So those are kind of things that you will have to bear in mind. So that's really a sneak peek into what the study and report has. There are plenty of other data there. So we've covered genre-wise, language-wise, viewership behaviors. We've got a lot of information on how one platform works versus the other. We've got a lot of information on OTT. I'm going to stop here and invite back Samir to really say, how is this report and this insights going to help the industry? Over to you, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you, Hemant. So thank you for listening to the findings from the study. There are 400 million millennial audiences in India, making us the largest millennial population in the world. These 400 million are going to become 500 million by 2020, responsible for $320 billion of spend, up from $180 billion of spend, and also responsible for becoming 42% of the working population of the country. 70% of all the millennials that work actually are contributing to 80% of their household incomes. So this is going to be half the country's working population running their houses and spending money and making buying decisions which inform where advertisers are going to spend in the next couple of years. And these platforms which they are looking at when it comes to consumption of content is social. All social has turned to video, and the mobile phone is the primary source of entertainment, news, and content across all genres. Video is exploding. This is a very new kind of consumer outside of the metros in the last 6 months that has began using the internet. And I think the study only proves that and verifies the fact that the internet is being dominated through video content. So thank you all for listening to us, and we hope you actually get to purchase the full report and read it and give us your feedback. We're going to be coming back again with the same report next year, if not in the next 6 months, as new platforms get added. In our OTT survey, some of the newer platforms which are launched right now, whose hoardings you see out there, won't launch then, and in the next 6 months, we'll make sure we sample them as well. Thank you again for your time. Thank you, Hemant.
Thank you.